Hey guys, it's Ty from GamesFromTheFront.com, and I'd like to spend a couple of minutes and do a review for Heroes Against the Red Star from Lock and Load Publishing. This is one of the core modules from the Lock and Load tactical system that's been released within the last couple months. I've been playing this game pretty extensively, or it's probably been my go-to game over the last couple months, playing it head-to-head over Vassal. And a little bit with the physical components using the solo module. So I'd like to give you some of my thoughts on the overall package and the way that it fits within the larger Lock and Load tactical universe. First of all, let me say that this is an excellent entry in the series. And if you are looking for a World War III, Cold War era, hypothetical, tactical level game, this is an excellent purchase. And there's a couple of reasons, or primary reasons I say that. And we'll go into a little bit more detail, but first of all, the game is incredibly fun to play, which is true for the series as a whole. I think the game also has a lot of the components and equipment and rules that bring some of the elements of what you would want from a World War III game to life. So it has the feel of a NATO versus Warsaw Pact game that you hope to have, that make it distinct from some of the other games in this series. So it fits the era that, even though hypothetical, that you're hoping to get. And overall, it's quite an attractive package, components, rules, the way it's supported by the publisher and the community. And so all in all, I can say that it's a worthwhile purchase if you're looking for a tactical level game. You know, I think there's a lot of debate on forums and online and among war gamers about what is the best system for tactical. You know, ASL is probably in a class of its own in terms of the depth of the rules and the level of commitment from a gamer, but you know, I think everything else kind of falls into the same category, whether it's Conflict of Heroes, whether it's Lock and Load Tactical, whether it's was it Band of Brothers. I don't know too much about the Advanced Tobruk system, but there's a whole category, Combat Commander, of course. There's a whole category of these second-tier games, not in quality, not in terms of community, but just kind of the in-depth or complexity about the rule set. There's a whole series of these second tier games that are not as complex or involved as ASL. You know, for me, I've played a handful of them. I was pretty involved with Conflict of Heroes. It's hard for me to get too passionate about one system over the others. What I'm saying here with this particular game and in this series is that it's a worthwhile investment. It's tremendously fun to play. And if you're looking for a tactical system, this is a great one to get. All right, let me start off by looking what's in the box. There are some other, in fact, many, perhaps too many unboxing videos around this game for my liking, but I will go through as I get ready to do the more detailed review. The game comes in a nice 3-inch box. And so you're going to have a lot of room to store your components. I love the artwork on this. I think they've done a good job of relaunching the series and the systems for Lock and Load Tactical. There's a nice uniformity to the packages, and I really like what they've done with this package. In fact, Heroes Against the Red Star is a combination of some previously produced and published material. Heroes of the Gap was the old version of this, and they've put in the old expansion module for that game, which is it's the French one whose name escapes me right now, but they've put this all in one package, so there's a lot of content for gameplay in here. You'll get a nice module rules and scenarios book. I believe there's 24 or so modules, which is a lot of gameplay. So you're not going to need an expansion. It's all in here. This has the module rules. They've done a good job with it. You know, I think the publisher has gone with this perfect bound approach rather than saddle stitch. I found it a little bit hard to use. In fact, my book is splitting a little bit already. It's hard to lay flat. I prefer the saddle stitch or the saddle stapling. But anyway, it's a well-produced book otherwise. There's a core rules book, of course, and this is actually one that I grabbed from another module, and it does have the staples in it. But I've just been using one rule book across all the modern series games, and then one for all the World War II series games. I like this format a little bit better. It lays a little bit more flat. It's easier to lay flat. You know, the rule book is I think generally well written. I will say though, I kind of wished it was cross-referenced a little bit better, and that some of the game's rules were a little bit easier to find. But again, because it's a series, you ultimately get used to the rules pretty quickly. I've already started to punch my counters, so I've got a counter tray. The game doesn't come with a tray, but again, with the 3-inch box, you're going to have plenty of storage. The counters are nice and thick. You know, I think honestly, for my taste, I think some of the art in some of the other games is a little bit better, but that's a little bit nitpicky. The artwork here is fine. But if you were to compare it to, I think, some of the more recent games, entirely new games like Heroes of North Africa, the art's a little bit better. But again, they've increased the thickness of the counters, so they're nice and thick and easy to grasp. You've got larger counters for vehicles, which there are a lot of in this game. Looking at the map, standard, excellent quality maps, nice thick map material, cardboard stock. You know, you are going to have to work them in a little bit to get them to lie flat, which isn't too big of a problem if you're using plexi. Although, unlike some of the other games in the series, Heroes Against the Red Star does have a really large map, and you're going to have to find a way to get that to lie flat if you're playing with the physical components. The thickness is a little bit of a problem. You're going to have to bend it back or use a couple pieces of plexi to get it to lie flat, which I know can be bothersome for some gamers. And then finally, there is a number of play aids that are in the box with the terrain effects chart. You've got a rules reference card, turn tracker, skill reference sheet. They're all very well produced. I think they're a little bit too numerous. I kind of wish that there was a way that they had condensed this. I think you'll find yourself referencing a lot of sheets, perhaps a little bit too often, at least for my tastes. I especially find the rules reference card a little bit too involved. They use a number of icons here. I don't think it's really all that intuitive. Even with the icon legend, it still requires me a little bit too much time to kind of work through all of this. And I'm a pretty experienced player. Having said that, if you find use of these, that you'll find them well produced. And perhaps they'll suit your gaming style a little bit better than for me. Okay, so that's the components. Again, not to take too much away from any of the other unboxing videos out there, but the quality overall is quite good and matches up what you'll find in other games in this series. Okay, well, what I was saying earlier about the overall recommendation is that this game has a couple of characteristics which I think make it worth recommending. First of all, the Lock and Load tactical system is a ton of fun to play. Right? So if you're looking for a game that you can break out, easily set up, hop online with the excellent Vassal module. or with the physical components for face-to-face play, you're going to have a good time playing with this. And even though it's using the series rules, there's enough variety in the scenarios that there's enough difference between each of them that you're going to have a different situation and a good time most every time that you play. And even though a lot of the scenarios rely on the single large map in the game, instinctively you might say, well, that's kind of boring. I don't want to play on the same map all the time. I haven't found that to be too much of a problem. I think there's enough variety in the scenarios, and action can take place at different parts of the map. And so the fact that most of the scenarios are on this single large map doesn't seem to be too much of a problem. What really makes Heroes Against the Red Star stand out is that it has a number of enhancements and scenario rules that bring the Cold War or Third World War to life. There are a ton of really interesting and powerful armor units. M1 Abrams, you've got T-80s from the Soviet side. All of those really bring the system armor rules to life and are a lot of fun to play. On top of that, you'll find helicopter rules, and helicopters are used in a number of the scenarios, either as troop transports or in some cases as flying anti-tank units. You've got, I think, Mi-24 Hinds. There's a handful of American helicopters. With the expansion that is built in, or the prior expansion that's now part of this core base, you'll also have some French forces that are well represented, all with their infantry units and a handful of armor units. There are special rules for anti-tank guided missiles. You'll also find rules for different types of barricades and anti-tank ditches and emplacements and things like that. And so there's just a combination of, I don't go as far to call it Chrome, because I think Chrome perhaps diminishes the importance of these rules, but there's definitely flavor that comes out from these special scenario rules. So they really add to the enjoyment to the game. I mentioned the scenarios earlier. There's, again, approximately, I think, 24 of them. The ones that reflect some of the combat on the larger map are sequentially listed or placed within the rule booklet. It's not really a campaign, but in terms of any rules that would allow for replacements or supply or anything like that. But if you wanted to, you could certainly kind of come up with a thematic story around the initial phases of World War III as the Soviets kind of pour through the Fulda Gap. You'll find that here. And then later in the book, you'll find some of those scenarios that bring in the French units against the Soviets and some of the smaller maps, either single maps or two maps. There's some scenarios for Belgians. Anyway, tons of gameplay, lots of flavor, lots of story, which is, I think, exactly at least what I want out of a tactical system. So again, from a recommendation standpoint, I'm really focusing on the enjoyment of the system in this scenario, in this setting, and the amount of gameplay and enjoyment that comes from the special rules. So top notch, definitely recommended. So even though I recommend it, I think potential buyers of Heroes Against the Red Star should know about a couple of shortcomings. I think I've had earlier in this review a handful of nitpicks over map thickness and things like that. I think some of the things that really bother me about this set, though, are errors in printing, mistakes in some of the scenarios. And I'm talking more than just simple errata, where perhaps there was something missed in a scenario, or a unit was left out of an order of battle, or things that I think of just kind of errors in the game. I'm talking truly about errors in printing. I mentioned earlier I found this Perfect Bound module book to be a little bit less than ideal for lying flat, and it's kind of split a little bit. I guess that's really a publishing quality issue. But even in the handful of scenarios I've played, I found a number of errors, sections missing from scenarios that make it difficult, if not impossible to play. They've chosen kind of a strange monospace, I guess it's not technically monospace, but kind of a courier style typeface. And in bringing over some of the old module information, there's a lot of situations where the digit 1 is confused with a lowercase l, or vice versa. And so some of the call outs of hexes on the maps are incorrect. I found that there are some rules on the reference cards that are not in the rule book, which is unfortunate. I found that there's missing information in some of the optional vehicle size DRMs. And again, none of these are fatal, but these are all things that I found in just a little bit of playing. I've played through 7 or 8 different scenarios. There's a lot more content in here, and I'm a little bit nervous about what else I'm going to find. And I think as gamers, we give publishers a lot of leeway on this type of thing. When I bring up these issues with other gamers, I get a lot of feedback of, well, it's not any worse than other publishers, or other publishers have these problems too. And I don't disagree with that. I think what I would say is, this is a game I love. This is a system I love. I think it's a publisher that does a great, outstanding job with customer service. And I don't want to see this type of thing as a distraction. And all these games are now published. These are things that really can't be fixed with customer service. They're going to require either documents or errata or second edition publishings. And for people who have already made the leap on this game, they've got a system that's got some issues with it, or a set that's got some systems with issues with it. And the last thing I'll mention in that area is if you're looking at the X maps, which I think are generally excellent, know that there are a handful or I should say at least one printing artifact on here, just something that is overlaying the hex grid that is out of place. And again, it's something that's printed, it's published. There are no replacements without that issue, and there's not a whole lot that customer service is going to do to fix that. To be fair, David Heath and the Lock and Load publishing team have been very clear that they're trying to work on something to get that out there. I'm anxiously awaiting for that fix and that information, but it's going to have to be in the form of living documentation to get all these types of things captured. Having said all that, it doesn't detract or take away from my recommendation. This is a game, it is pushing, I think retail is $85. You throw shipping in there, you throw the X maps in there, and you're over $100. So I think at that point you should expect some really high quality, an overall high quality game. I think that's here. But unfortunately, there are some problems with the product as it sits right now. Having said that, it's still a game I recommend. It's too much fun. It's got too much flavor. And if you're looking for a tactical level system, this is one that I can recommend without reservation. All right, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, you can write in the comments below on the YouTube page. Or you can catch me on my webpage or my blog at gamesfromthefront.com, or perhaps I'll see you on the Discord server where I'm occasionally playing Lock and Load Tactical online. Thanks for watching.